Tonight, we're going to recount a truly chilling story. It's about a honeymoon, one that just spiraled into this dark, bewildering tragedy.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Picture this. A newlywed couple, Gabe Watson and Tina Thomas. They're setting off for what really should have been the most perfect trip of their lives.
A 2-week escape to Australia. Sounds amazing.
Exactly. Their second week takes them to Townsville, Queensland. Beautiful beaches, sunshine. Supposed to be romantic.
And they planned a scuba diving excursion there, a shared adventure.
But that's where the dream just shatters. It descends into a nightmare. An unexpected, tragic event happened beneath the waves.
And it left behind this trail of suspicion, so many unanswered questions swirling around what really happened on that honeymoon dive.
So this is their story. Let's start with Tina.
Okay, Tina Thomas. She was actually born in Germany, February 13th, 1977. Her early life was quite difficult.
Orphaned, right?
Yeah, orphaned young, spent time in an orphanage. But then when she was 6, her life changed dramatically.
She was adopted.
By an American couple, Tommy and Cindy Thomas. They brought her to the U.S., lived in Alabama, Louisiana for a bit.
Before settling in Birmingham, Alabama in the late 90s.
Right. And by all accounts, she really became part of the family. Very close to Tommy and Cindy and her younger adoptive sister, Eliana.
Seemed like a happy kid mostly, but there was a health issue.
Yes, from a young age, Tina was diagnosed with something called paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, PSVT.
Which causes a racing heartbeat.
Exactly. Episodes of very rapid heartbeat. It was manageable with medication, regular checkups, but definitely something to be mindful of.
And she eventually had surgery for it.
She did, yeah. In 2001, when she was 24. Successful heart surgery to correct the problem.
Her dad described her as really outgoing, cheerful, just a source of joy.
That's what you hear, a bright presence. She went on to college in Birmingham, building her life there.
And it was in college in Birmingham that she met Gabe Watson.
Gabe Watson. He was tall, 6'3", went to Cooper High School in Alabama, apparently played basketball.
And he loved water sports, especially scuba diving. That seems key.
Very key. His father and friends described him as, generally cheerful, fun-loving, a good guy, but maybe with some typical teenage stuff.
And he was apparently quite taken with Tina right away.
Seemed like it. Even when she first met him, she actually had a serious boyfriend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently they were even talking engagement. But Tina's mother, Cindy, reportedly didn't approve of the guy.
So that ended.
It did. Tina called off the engagement. But even after that, she didn't immediately start dating Gabe. She dated other people first.
So Gabe was persistent.
Sounds like it. They reconnected properly at a New Year's Eve party, end of 2001. Talked again.
And this time it clicked.
This time, yeah. Tina decided to give him a chance. 3 weeks later, they were officially dating.
Both graduated from the University of Alabama.
Tina got a job managing a children's clothing store. Gabe went to work for his father's packaging company.
Okay, so let's circle back to the scuba diving. For Gabe, this wasn't just a hobby.
No, not at all. It was a real passion. He put time into it, got certified as a rescue diver, held an advanced diver certification.
Which means he had significant experience, trained for emergencies underwater.
Exactly. Tina, though, completely different story with water.
Right. Disliked water activities, actually afraid of swimming.
That's the description. A friend even joked her swimming looked like a poodle paddling. It's quite a contrast.
A huge contrast. Which makes Gabe's push for her to scuba dive with him seem interesting.
Definitely notable. Despite her fear, Tina seemed willing to try to sort of bridge that gap.
So in January 2003, she asks her dad, Tommy, about taking a scuba course. Clearly to please Gabe.
Understandably, Tommy was deeply concerned. Very worried.
Because of her heart history, even post-surgery.
Exactly. PSVT, the surgery. He strongly advised against it. Worried about the physical strain, the risks.
Did he talk to Gabe about it?
He did. But Gabe apparently brushed off the concerns. Said something like, she should participate in his interests like he did in hers.
So despite her dad's serious reservations, Tina took the diving lessons anyway.
He did. Seems Gabe's influence was pretty strong.
And not long after, April 20th, 2003, Gabe proposes with an Easter egg hunt surprise.
Yeah, quite creative. And Tina accepted.
Her parents, Tommy and Cindy, weren't exactly overjoyed, but they accepted her decision.
But then something else happened that worried Tommy.
What was that?
September 26, 2003. Just weeks before the wedding. Tina asks Tommy to increase her life insurance policy.
Okay.
And crucially, to make Gabe the beneficiary.
Wow. Okay, that would feel unsettling.
Tommy definitely found it odd. He suggested they talk about it after the honeymoon.
Smart move. So they get married October 11th, 2003.
And just before the ceremony, Tommy has one last chat with Tina. Asked her if she was absolutely sure.
And she said yes, affirmed her love for Gabe.
She did. The very next day, October 12th, they leave for their 2-week honeymoon in Australia.
First week in Sydney seems normal enough, then Townsville, Queensland for the second week.
And that's where they booked the cruise package that included the scuba diving.
The dive that would change everything.
October 22nd, 2003.
Yeah.
That was the day. Gabe, as we established, very experienced diver, 55 log dives, rescue diver certified.
Trained in emergency procedures, Tina. Very limited experience, fewer than 10 dives.
Hugely relying on Gabe's expertise, you'd assume. They board the dive boat, the Spoil Sport, with other divers, staff, instructors.
And here's where things start to get really concerning. Gabe specifically declined a personal dive instructor for Tina.
Yeah, despite her obvious inexperience. He apparently said they didn't need one, that he could look after her himself.
There was a minor issue with his gear, something with a gauge.
A pressure and time gauge issue, yeah. But reports say it was fixed before they went in. Their dive site was called Yongala.
And the conditions weren't great that day.
No, reportedly strong currents, quite challenging seas. And before they even got in the water, Gabe asked staff for extra weights for Tina.
To help her get down against the current, presumably?
Presumably. So they get in the water. Initial moments, they hit those strong currents.
Gabe signals to surface.
He signals to ascend, yeah. But Tina's response wasn't clear. She seemed agitated, distressed.
Okay, so this is where Gabe's account comes in. What did he say happened next?
According to Gabe, Tina panicked. And in that panic, she accidentally knocked his dive mask off.
Okay.
He said he spent about a minute readjusting his mask, clearing it. When he looked back down,
She was gone.
he claimed she'd sunk rapidly, about 30 meters down to the ocean floor.
So what did Gabe do then?
He decided to surface immediately to get help from the boat staff, told him his wife had sunk.
And someone went down for her.
Yes, a staff member, Wade Singleton. He dove down right away, found Tina, and brought her up.
Not back to the Spoil Sport.
No, they brought her to another nearby boat, the Jazz Second. Wade started CPR immediately, continued for about 40 minutes, a desperate effort.
And during all this, where was Gabe? What were people observing?
Well, that's when the questions really started. People on the boat apparently questioned why Gabe himself didn't try to help Tina underwater.
What was his explanation?
He claimed he wasn't trained for that specific type of rescue, and also mentioned having ear pressure problems, discomfort.
Despite being a certified rescue diver.
Exactly. Tragically, despite the efforts, when paramedics arrived and got her to the hospital, Tina was pronounced dead.
Just devastating. And the initial medical findings were unusual.
A couple of things stood out. Doctors noted a surprisingly small amount of water in her lungs, not quite typical for drowning.
Okay.
And Wade Singleton, the rescuer, thought it was very odd she hadn't ditched her weight belt.
The extra heavy one Gabe requested.
Yeah, it had 20 pounds on it, which is way more than the usual, maybe 8 pounds for someone her size and experience.
So these details, they start painting a more suspicious picture.
Definitely. Hints that maybe things weren't as straightforward as a simple panic incident, suggesting maybe a pattern of deception.
Yeah, and Gabe's behavior right after didn't help matters, did it? Eyewitnesses described it as strange.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on Tina, who was getting CPR on the other boat, he was reportedly consoling other passengers on the Spoil Sport, giving hugs.
That just feels off.
Yeah.
Deeply inappropriate, given his wife was fighting for her life nearby.
Absolutely. Then there was testimony from Dr. Stanley, who was on the dive boat. He saw Gabe hug Tina before they went in the water.
Okay.
And he also saw Tina make a kind of flailing motion right then.
A flailing motion. And there were photos.
Yeah, another diver nearby, Gary Kempelman, took some underwater shots, and one of them seems to capture Tina sinking.
Wow. So the police get involved, obviously. Australian police question Gabe.
And his story had inconsistencies right away. He said he wanted to help Tina, but then claimed he lacked the specific training.
The ear issues excuse again.
Right. And that prompted his quick assent for help. He really emphasized the mask incident, her knocking it off.
And how he told her parents was also odd.
Extremely insensitive. He told his own parents about the mask incident, but then asked them to tell Tina's parents.
Oh no, that's awful.
Just awful. Tina's parents were, of course, completely devastated, and they believed strongly this shouldn't have happened. The autopsy confirmed drowning as the cause of death.
3 days later, Gabe returns to the U.S. with Tina's body. The funeral must have been incredibly difficult.
And apparently Gabe's behavior there also raised concerns. Someone reported him making an inappropriate comment about her chest
Seriously.
At her funeral.
That's the report, just adding to the unease people felt.
And it didn't stop there.
No. Later, he sent out a Christmas card, used their wedding photo, but the caption. Many felt it was self-congratulatory, totally tone-deaf given she'd just died tragically.
Unbelievable. And then he tried to get money.
He tried to get compensation from the cruise dive company, unsuccessfully.
And the life insurance.
He then tried to claim on Tina's life insurance, only to find out he wasn't actually listed as the beneficiary.
Because Tommy hadn't changed it before the honeymoon.
Exactly. And that detail, combined with everything else, really solidified Tommy Thomas's suspicion. He became convinced his daughter's death was no accident.
You can't blame him. All these inconsistencies, the strange behavior.
Absolutely. So Tommy, driven by grief and suspicion, decides he needs answers. He actually goes to Australia himself.
Wow, he went back there.
Yeah. Conducted his own sort of investigation, met with Wade Singleton, the rescuer, met with the Australian police, shared everything he knew, all the discrepancies.
His determination must have made a difference.
It seems it did. By July 2004, Australian police officially declared it a criminal matter. Their own investigation backed up the inconsistencies.
Like his swimming speed.
Yeah, analysis showed he swam to the surface at a normal pace, not frantically like you might expect if rushing for help.
And his claim about asking other divers for help?
No evidence to support that. No other divers corroborated it. And then there's the whole rescue diver certification versus his claim he couldn't perform the rescue.
It just doesn't add up. What about Tina's dive computer?
That was revealing too. Showed multiple surface intervals early on. Her voice recording saying, indicated nervousness, lack of confidence.
Which makes his refusal of an instructor even more questionable.
Exactly. Police noted that refusal, plus the fact he hadn't disclosed her inexperience or previous panic issues to the dive company.
And the autopsy review yielded something new.
Yes. A later review suggested she might have lost consciousness before drowning due to lack of oxygen.
Lack of oxygen? How?
Well, it led to a very chilling theory that maybe Gabe had briefly turned off her air supply underwater,
Oh my God.
causing panic, loss of consciousness, and then drowning. It would fit with the small amount of water in her lungs, perhaps.
That's horrifying. What are other potential reasons for less water in the lungs typically, besides that theory?
Sometimes in rapid drowning or cases with laryngospasm where the airway clamps shut, you might see less water. But combined with the other factors, the theory gained traction.
And the police confirmed with the dive company about him insisting he didn't need help, not mentioning her issues.
They did. So, Australian police had gathered a lot of evidence, but Gabe was back in Alabama. Out of reach, legally speaking, for the moment.
And things got even stranger back in the U.S. with the grave.
Yeah, really unsettling. Tommy Thomas reported flowers kept disappearing from Tina's grave.
Just vanishing.
Then it got worse. Gabe moved Tina's body to a plot he owned. No headstone. Didn't tell her family.
He just moved her remains without telling them.
Yes. Tommy eventually found the new grave site, but the flowers kept disappearing from there too.
What was going on?
Police got involved, set up a camera, and they caught Gabe on video taking the flowers.
They caught him. What was his reason?
His explanation was that Tina didn't like plastic flowers, and he was just being respectful by removing them.
That sounds thin. While all this is happening, Gabe's moving on.
Yes. He started dating again, and in August 2008, he married a woman named Kim.
But the investigation wasn't over?
Not for the Australians. They kept digging, even came to Alabama to learn more about Gabe's character or potential motives.
And they found things. About his marriage to Tina.
They did. Found evidence suggesting he wasn't always a good husband, reports of anger issues, even an incident where he allegedly threw pizza at her.
Threw pizza at her?
That was an account they uncovered. Also learned they had broken up once before the wedding. Tina dated someone else, but Gabe persuaded her to get back together.
And Tommy told them about the life insurance request.
Yes, providing that crucial piece about the potential financial motive. Finally, in May 2009, Australia moved to extradite Gabe.
To face charges for Tina's death.
Exactly. But an agreement was reached.
What kind of agreement?
Instead of murder, he'd face a lesser charge in Australia. Manslaughter by criminal negligence.
Manslaughter. And he pleaded guilty.
He did plead guilty to manslaughter in Australia, sentenced to 4 years, 6 months, later reduced to just 18 months served.
18 months. For causing her death through negligence, Tina's family must have been devastated.
They felt justice absolutely was not served. Utterly heartbroken by that outcome.
So Tommy didn't give up.
Not a chance. He immediately contacted authorities back in Alabama, wanted to pursue more charges when Gabe got out.
But there was a legal issue with transferring evidence.
Yeah, Australian law had a rule preventing evidence transfer for cases where the death penalty wasn't a possibility under their system. A significant hurdle.
But Alabama decided to proceed anyway.
They did. Agreed to pursue it. They indicted Gabe on capital murder and kidnapping with trickery.
Kidnapping with trickery, based on luring her into the dive.
That was the theory, yeah. Allegedly deceiving her into the fatal situation. And Tina's estate was legally transferred to Tommy.
So a U.S. trial, when did that happen?
It began February 13th, 2012. Poignantly, that would have been Tina's 35th birthday.
Wow. And the trial itself, there were issues with evidence.
Major issues. In a really controversial move, the Alabama judge disallowed key evidence.
What kind of evidence?
Evidence the prosecution felt showed motive and suspicious behavior, like his actions on the boat right after, and the whole life insurance policy situation.
They weren't allowed to present that to the jury. Why not?
The specific legal reasons aren't always clear from the outside, but it drastically weakened the prosecution's case. It really highlights how different legal systems, different judges can interpret admissibility so differently. Same events, potentially very different evidence allowed.
So without that crucial context, what happened?
The outcome was starkly different from Australia. Gabe Watson was acquitted. Found not guilty of both capital murder and kidnapping with trickery. Lacked sufficient admissible evidence.
Acquitted after pleading guilty to manslaughter in Australia.
Exactly. It was a shock. Tina's family, many observers, just disbelief and anger. But the acquittal was final.
Leaving so many questions unanswered.
Completely. A profound sense of injustice for many.
So what we're left with is this incredibly complex case, two different countries, two drastically different legal outcomes.
It really underscores the difficulties, doesn't it?
Yeah.
International law complexities, the challenge of proving intent beyond doubt, especially these tragic, murky situations.
He pleads guilty to manslaughter there, gets acquitted of murder here. It leaves this huge, painful void where answers should be.
The questions about what truly happened on that honeymoon dive just linger, casting this long shadow.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? About how evidence is interpreted, about hidden motives, about how hard it can be to find the absolute truth in some tragedies. What really happened down there, we might never know for sure.
A deeply unsatisfying, heartbreaking end to the legal process.
That's the story we wanted to recount for you today. Pause. Thank you for joining us. If you found this story compelling, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs, for more stories.